Hey everybody, it's Mike Short and welcome to my channel. Don't waste your life. I want to remind you to be present, to be happy, and to be thankful. If you're new to the channel, I ask you to subscribe. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. So as you can probably tell, I'm a little sick. I've been sick for the last week and sound like Kermit the Frog, and with my nose, my mouth, just the way it is, I feel like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So yeah, I've been sick for the last week. Evan got me sick, so been a little under the weather, still recovering. That's also why I haven't shot anything. And I was debating whether to do this, and my wife's like, why don't you just wait? And I'm like, I kind of just want to be able to film something. So anyways, you guys are gonna have to make do with it. And with that, this week I'm gonna talk about how to get started in journaling. So last week I talked through how I use journaling, and then this session I'm gonna talk about how to get started, because some people reach out to me and they're like, hey, yeah, that was great how you described that, but like how do I get started doing that? And like, what would that look like? How can I make that as easy as possible? And so that's what this session is gonna be about. Cut. And when I talked through journaling, I talked about the 4 ways that I use journaling, which is a way to help me remain thankful, creating structure for my ideas, understanding my goals and true ambitions, and finally looking at areas of improvement over time and being able to track it. So the first thing that we need to talk about is digital versus handwritten. And I initially started using a digital journal, and I later switched to a handwritten one. I'm going to talk through why. So in this area, I'm going to talk through the advantages and disadvantages of each. I won't go into detail on all of them, but I will talk through some of them. And so you'll see it up on the screen as I kind of talk through it. So on the digital side, the positives are it's a searchable item, and you don't need to worry about how bad your handwriting is. It also allows you to embed all kinds of media, pictures, videos, even links. There's a lot you can do with it. Digital backups. So like, for example, my physical journal, I had to be worried about losing it or it getting destroyed. With a digital journal, you don't have to worry about that. The negatives are that you're locked into a platform. It could be quite costly. And even if you're going to try to convert, it could be expensive to try to, or timely to move all the data over. So you could lose all your history. On the negative sides, you also need usually have internet. So you're tethered to your phone. So some people they don't want to have their phone with them. They want to be able to travel, or just not be having to rely on their phone all the time. Which further propagates other bad habits like social media. And one thing I actually think is a big negative for the digital side is that can often capture too much detail. And then the final thing is that it's easy to get distracted by other things. And now on the handwritten side, some of the positives are that's highly customizable and dynamic. And one thing that I actually really enjoy is because it takes longer to write, you tend to be more selective with your wording. So I actually believe when I'm writing something, I actually like process it and then write it. Versus when I'm typing, I can keep up stream of consciousness with how everything's progressing. So I think it's useful to be able to have as handwritten, you have to be more selective on your wording. The other thing is that there's a sensory motivation to this, and that can also help you remember and recall things. So for example, I find that sometimes I'll be able to remember exactly where different things are on different pages just because of actually writing it versus typing it up. Now on the negative side it's not natively searchable. So there's no way to really be able to look for something specific. There are techniques out there, and I won't really get into them, but some of the methods that I will be introducing, there are ways to get things to be able to be searchable or to be able to find things. Another negative is if your handwriting is bad, it can be a challenge. So like me, my handwriting is not that great. It can definitely make it challenging. And then the third thing that I find is a negative is if you have OCD, it can be tough to keep your journal actually clean, both physically and then when you're writing inside of it, you may want to white out stuff. So everybody's a little bit different than that. So those are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the digital and handwritten. So I think the first thing is you got to be able to solve for is to figure out which platform is going to work for you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I used a digital platform, but especially because I love the searchability. And in fact, the last episode, I was able to do it because I was able to search and find certain keywords for things I was looking for. That's something now that I'm doing a handwritten, I'm not going to be able to do that as easily. But recently, when I went to the handwritten one, I find that I'm become more succinct and I'm more thoughtful about my wording choices and what I write down. Versus with digital, I'll just kind of type whatever, and it can just be very too much. It could just be too much. I don't know how else to say that except for it's just like you're recording too much information. It's kind of verbose, which is just how I am in general. So it's actually good not to have that. In this next area, though, I'm going to talk through the top 3 mistakes I see when people are starting out in journaling. Some of these are going to be more specific to the handwritten versus the digital ones, but this, especially this first one, is that you're trying to make it look cool. So I always tell people focus on function over fashion or how it looks. You're not trying to impress other people with your cool journal. What you're actually trying to do is you're trying to build something that's going to work for you and that's accessible and that's gonna, meet you where you're at. That's really what you need. So focus on the function over making it look pretty. Number 2 is trying to use it to track everything. So one of the journaling techniques I'll talk about later, you can actually overwhelm yourself by trying to track too much. And so I tend to be more simplistic and focus on a couple things to track, and that's it. Because actually what will happen is you will find it that journaling will not be fun and it will not be something you want to do if you're trying to do too much with it. So I always say, figure out what is the most important thing you want to track and why. That's what I would focus on. Number 3 is not making journaling a habit or not keeping it close by. Initially, when I was tracking and doing in my journal, I was doing it whenever I had something I wanted to say. When I actually felt like I've started getting more out of it, it was become more powerful, was when I was starting to do it on a daily basis. I could see different things over time, and I just felt that it was so much more powerful than what it was before, just by journaling over time. So I highly recommend that. And it also helps you build a habit, that there's a consistent habit that you're following on, and maybe you're habit stacking that with something else that you're doing during the day. And you just need to find what works for you. But that's very important, is to build a habit and make it easy. So now I'm going to talk about bullet journaling. This is something I discovered a couple months ago, and it's a special technique that you can use a handwritten journal. You can use digital, but I feel like handwritten is the way to go to be able to track and organize your life. So the way I always think about it is that it helps you to track past historical items, order the present, and help design the future. And that's actually what the creator says, something very similar to that. I think the key here is to think about what you ultimately want your journal to be used for, the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish, and then understanding the why is also helpful, but like the what is very important. And below I'll include some screenshots to show you like what will be in the bullet journal. And again, it's a technique that I feel like is pretty easy to learn. I will say, like in the beginning, it can be a little bit daunting because of like the symbols and some of the different things. And I won't go into that, but I will include some links to some videos that explain it up above. So the first thing you'll create in your journal is an index, and the index will basically route you to all the other information in your journal so you can kind of know where to find the information. So you'll have the page numbers in there. So for example, the next section, the daily summary, will be in there. It'll say daily summary on page 3 to 5, and then comma 7 to 10, because there may be a gap in between because you may have other collections in between, but it'll allow you to be able to find where the information is. And there's also some more advanced techniques of threading, and I won't get into that allow you to tile that back, so that way you kind of know where to go to get the most up-to-date information for that. But the daily journal basically tracks all your daily tasks, your daily notes, as far as like what you're, maybe like you have a goal to be thankful and write down every day what something you're thankful for, so you'll have it in there. Or maybe you'll have other thoughts you're including in there. So it's just basically your daily stuff. And again, I've have a screenshot of some samples here, and you can see that. The next one will be the monthly summary. And this is where on the left-hand side, you'll list out a calendar view that'll have the days of the month, and then it'll also have the days of the month. And then on the right-hand side, you may have tasks or other stuff. And I've attached a sample here so you can kind of see what, some stuff like this looks like. But this is very helpful because then you can kind of track on the left-hand side, the actual calendar of things that actually happen. So after things happen, like major events, I'd write it down. So then that way you'll have it and you'll be able to refer to it. So like if it's your brother's birthday or you guys went out for a nice date dinner, maybe track that in there. So that way you know when the last date dinner was that you had with your wife or your spouse. And the last one I recommend putting in there is the goals collection. And I haven't actually implemented this yet. I plan to implement this when I go back to work. But one thing you can do is you can create these custom collections. So for example, I'm in the process of trying to find a small group / a church. So what I actually did is I created a church / small group collection. And I'm trying to, and I wrote a purpose statement to say, well, what is this for? Why does this exist? And then from there, I have all my notes in there that go along with that. So that way, when I'm thinking about that particular thing or I'm doing research on it, I can refer back to that collection. So with the goals section, that'll come in the future as I kind of build this out a little bit further. But like I said, there's some videos out there that can walk you through that as well. So in conclusion, the most important things to kind of get as you're kind of getting started is number one is the software, the platform. And it's either going to be digital or it's going to be handwritten. The second thing is make it easy or frictionless or less frictionless to make it habitual. So that way it just kind of happens over time. Number three is getting started, even if it's ugly or even if it's overly simplistic, you just need to get going to build momentum. And so with that is how I recommend you get started with journaling. Take care, guys.